Thank you very much, Becky. I'm hugely grateful to the work that the Woodland Trust has done and will do, because a friend of mine defined statesmanship to me the other day, and he said statesmanship is planting trees under whose shade you yourself will never sit, so that the next generation and the generation after that benefit from the decisions that you've made. And that's true as a metaphor for the laws that we make and the institutions that we create. Ultimately, statesmanship is deciding that if you have power or responsibility, you should exercise it not to satisfy the needs of the moment, but to serve the interests of the future. But it's more than just a powerful metaphor. It's also a reminder to me in this job what one of my most direct manifesto commitments is: to make sure that we do plant trees under whose shade, however long I have on this earth, I will never sit, for the benefit of future generations. And we must do better. Becky, you're absolutely right. The rates of tree planting recently in Britain, in England in particular, have not been good enough. And to exacerbate the problem, we have had individual local authorities and other organisations that, as well as not planting with sufficient forethought, have also been responsible for felling in a way which is an act of ecological and environmental vandalism. And I have to commend the Woodland Trust for the way in which it has called out those local authorities and others who've applied the axe to beautiful, natural trees in a way that has been wholly unwise, wholly unacceptable, and scornful of the needs of this and future generations. And your advocacy has been powerful and effective and welcome. But more than that, there's a responsibility for us to plant for the future as well. And I was delighted that, thanks to the advocacy of my colleague Therese Coffey and the work of the Forestry Commission and others, that the very first major planting as a result of the Woodland Carbon Fund being created was authorised just the other week in Doddington North Moor. It's a significant step forward, and this new planting will, I hope, create a habitat not just for red squirrels, but also for a variety of species who benefit from woodland cover, and it will also reinforce our commitment to plant more trees, 11 million more trees, in the lifetime of this Parliament. And I don't need to remind you in this room, but I do need to remind others across government how vital it is to meet that target. Because in utilitarian terms, trees are one of our most effective carbon sinks. And if we're going to deal effectively with the problem of climate change, we need to plant more trees. In international reputational terms, if you look at the UK and England in particular and compare us with other European countries, then the amount of woodland cover that we have is pathetically small. If you think in terms of biodiversity and natural habitats, then unless we dramatically increase woodland cover, then existing species will find that their chances of survival are reduced, and that some of the species that we may in due course want to see return to this country won't have the environment that they need in order to do so. And it's also the case that, as well as the direct benefits in terms of carbon reduction, in terms of biodiversity, and in terms of habitat creation, there's something else as well. There's a beauty and a poetry to a landscape decorated, indeed rooted, with trees. And if we have a care for our environment, and if we have a view of this country which goes beyond simply the utilitarian and the practical, and which is imbued with a proper sense of beauty and romance and history, and a desire to ensure that future generations can enjoy what past generations have cherished, then we need to plant more trees. And with the publication of the 25-year Environment Plan in the new year, I hope that we will say more about how we intend to meet that ambition. But we won't be able to meet that ambition, we won't be able to do what the country deserves and what future generations need without the continued advocacy, and yes, sometimes criticism, that comes from the Woodland Trust and from you in this room, because it's only by you holding us to the highest standards that we will make sure that the next generation inherit the woodlands, the forests and the trees that they have every right to deserve. And with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you.